Hello, 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 once again. Welcome back. I am your host, none other than Fusion Phil. After yet again some wild, wild times, guys, I actually swapped out my computer for a new computer. I've upgraded back to a laptop. So if you guys can't hear me or something sounds funky, go ahead and let me know in chat. I've also rearranged my desk and moved rooms in my house due to the heat up in our neck of the woods. So you see me looking over to my side a little bit here. That's where I've relocated my chat to. But I wanted to get back to these free support Fridays to make sure that you guys have everything and anything you need and open up the door to all of your questions and problems. For those of you that are new here and catching this for the first time, at any time, if you guys have a question whatsoever, you go ahead and throw it inside a chat while we are live. You could also leave a comment if you're catching this over the weekend, or you can use the support email address down below to send us over a support ticket for us to jump onto. Now, this week, I don't have a lot to show you guys right out of the box. I have a couple of very interesting workflows that I think a lot of you are going to get a kick out of when it comes to milling and possibly looping items. But you guys all know we're going to go ahead and kick this off the same way as we always do. We do have a lovely Buy Me a Beer program if you guys value or find anything useful during this time frame. However, I'm going to go ahead and crack open this energy drink that my son picked out for me. That's why it's Pac-Man. And let's get this kicked off as a whole. So I think the very first thing I want to investigate is the whole automatic expansion of tool paths. I know it's a bug inside of Fusion. I know I've seen it on the Facebook page a bunch. Now, I have not experienced it yet. So let's go ahead and get my screen switched over. Again, at any time, if any of you guys have any questions, oh, we forgot to hide the old taskbar. Let me go ahead and change my taskbar behavior. Makes it a little bit nicer for all of you. There we go. And now they're gone once again. So again, you guys have questions, you're going to notice we also have the chat up here live so you guys can catch that chat while we're going. So I'm going to go ahead and get a part opened up. Now, this is actually a good point I'm going to show you guys. This happened to me the other day, and it had me absolutely irritated by why I couldn't find my files. So for all of you out there, you guys have seen my content. I have this headlight mold. I love using this for example purposes. Now, I am going to open this here real quick, but what was happening to me is I was having a rough one on Friday, to say the least, with traveling and everything. But as you guys can see here, is you could switch where you're actually searching. So for me, at one point, I was searching for the headlight mold inside of my HFO folder. And for some, I don't know if it was just a late Friday, what was going on. But every time I search something, right? So if we go ahead and say headlight now, you're going to notice it keeps saying 0 results, but it keeps pointing itself at a specific project. So again, we're going to go ahead and swap that back to all data. And then of course your parts are going to come up. Now, I personally don't know how this is triggered. I've been told that if you hover your mouse on something and wait long enough, it'll start expanding things out. I think the other thing is if you regenerate tool paths was the thing to trigger that. And if you guys out there know what is triggering this, go ahead and throw it in chat for me so I can take a look at it a little deeper. But let's go ahead and expand out. I'm hoping the bug hits. If not, you guys are probably gonna hate me for it. It doesn't matter either way. I know a trick to show you guys, a quick way to expand everything or recontract everything. I'm hoping it does it. Outside of that, how's everybody's week been? I know it's been about a month since I've got a chance to get on here and talk to you guys. See, this is my luck. For the record, a lot of people out there have these problems. I'm going to blame the fact that mine is not doing it. It'll probably do it here in like 4 or 5 minutes, right? When we're doing something else. But as you guys can see, mine is not doing this entire expand or collapse move that a lot of you are witnessing. Again, new computer, I'm on the Ultra series. It's amazing. I recommend people updating. If you're jumping from Windows 10, feel free to jump all the way up to the Ultra series, especially on your new computer for Windows 11. But for a lot of you, all you need to do is you actually can right click. And as you'll see down here, you have expand all children's, and then you have collapse all children. So the problem a lot of people are having is once upon regenerating or hovering their mouse over something, all of their tool paths expand out. And as you can see all of the information to each individual toolpath. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and right click. And again, I can go back and just simply say, collapse them all back down. Now, as you're going to notice, it collapsed down the entire setup to include all of my actual operations as well. But just simply enough, that is a hot and easy way to go around it. Now, if you're anything like me and you're having that problem, it won't be the biggest deal. As you guys know, software has billions of lines of codes nowadays. I know I've seen it personally from a couple Autodesk reps. They don't know how something like this made its way through. Also don't really know where it's coming from my understanding. But I'm going to give it a chance again. You have to click on it and wait. I honestly, on my end, guys, I can't get it to happen. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is another really funny one that I noticed a while ago. I still don't know if this bug is here, but if you were to highlight multiple toolpaths and change one, what was happening, and there it still does it, right? So if I highlight multiple toolpaths and then I change the name of one, you're going to notice every single toolpath has changed as well. So this was a pretty interesting, I shouldn't say it's a bug, but presumably as a user, you're highlighting and then you're trying to change the name of said highlighted items. It makes sense, right? So again, another neat little bug inside of the software that we've seen. Now, here goes to another really good one that I have seen happen to a few people. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a different part. And I got to remember, actually, we'll go ahead and use the search function. I want to say it was the enclosure. It's going to have some simpler toolpaths on it. It is. Now, one of my customers, they're working in a system of a pallet changer. They're using tombstones. They're doing a lot of different things. And what has happened to them is upon bringing in their part files, we'll give this a second to load. Give me one sec. In the meantime, while that go ahead and loads up, I see more and more of you guys coming in here. If you guys have questions at any time, go ahead and throw it in the chat window down below. I'd be happy to answer those. Also, if my audio is sounding off or something just doesn't seem right in my video, don't stop me. Don't hesitate to stop me. I've updated a new computer. We're going to be good for the next couple of years again, hopefully, before I have to update once again. So again, as you guys seen, I've inserted this file in here. I'm going to go ahead and break this link. And then you know what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring that in a second time because I tried to replicate this problem on my side. And once I get to where the problem is, I think a lot of you guys are going to notice what's happening. So again, we're going to go ahead and break that link. And now for the sake of what we have going on, we're just going to go ahead and move this over. And let's say, for example, we're going to flip it. Actually, let's go 90 degrees. And you know what? We're going to go a little bit more this way. So we have two parts on a tombstone, right? So if I go over to the manufacturer workspace, I made the number one rule I shouldn't have done is broke the link on those, because what I'm looking for is to bring those toolpaths in side of the software, right? So again, we can go ahead and go back. Let's undo this a little bit. As you guys can imagine, it's been, again, a wild week for me. I flew all the way to New York to hang out with one of my customers over the weekend and get them all set up with some stuff. And my flights got canceled like crazy. The World Cup was on Sunday. It was a mess that I was supposed to get home Sunday night. Didn't get home until late Tuesday. So there we go. We have these two files linked. We're going to go ahead and jump over to manufacturer. I'm actually going to insert the CAM data here. I don't know what toolpaths are on these parts, but we're going to find out. Oh, there we go. We got some chats coming in. Tim says everything's looking good. Awesome, Tim. I appreciate it. I saw there's a new update now on YouTube where it gives you guys little crowns and all that type of stuff for returning people. Jeff's on a plane going to Idaho. Jeff, I'm curious, what's in Idaho, man? I mean, probably hunting if I had to guess, right? So again, we're going to go ahead. Did we import those? Did we not? We did, of course. So as you guys are seeing right now, I have all of my toolpaths for each one of my parts have now come in as well. And the problem that somebody was struggling with is in order to see if I got the problem in play, let me go ahead and pull up my tool library here. So we're going to go ahead and look at this actual document. Oh, let's go back here one sec. We want the simple enclosure. There we go. So it didn't do it. But the problem they were having in particularly is they were getting a duplication of tools, right? So again, when you bring in 2 sets of parts. Again, let's go ahead and just break the links on these. Autodesk has gotten really good about this. I will also say their dilemma was based on a right-hand and a left-handed part. But what was going on is when they were going out to post these parts, so let's say I want to do setup 1 and setup 1 of both of them. On posting out, if we look at our operations, what you'll notice is if I try to reorder by operation, a lot of things here are being duplicated and tripled. And that was the issue that they were having, is they were causing a really crazy order issue inside of their minimizing tool changes. And that was, again, that was linked back to the fact that because each one of their parts had tools on them, tool 1 was actually, there was 2 tool 1s in their library. So again, I verified here, we didn't get that lucky, where I've actually, this problem has been fixed since. But it was very interesting to see when they were trying to reorder their tool changes, and it was just jumping all over the place. It wasn't staying on one part. It wasn't, it would do one tool here, and then it was wanting to do a tool change and then go over here, even though it was the same tool in the spindle. And that was causing a lot of problems in that reorder situation. Gosman, great to see you back, right? Jeff's going to get one of those contracts for potato machines. I like it, man. Don't get me started on my potatoes. We harvest some potatoes out of my garden. They're amazing. So again, let's go ahead and see if I can cause that other error to pop up. Any of you out there in chat want to tell me what you guys are doing to cause that error where all of a sudden everything regenerate? Let's go ahead and see if we can regenerate and get it to happen. But on my end, I'm not seeing this stuff explode and go all over the place. Very curious to see. But this would be a good time to talk about the fact that, as you guys saw, I brought in 2 parts and I linked them. But this is where you have that ability to go through and actually delete out your different setups if you wanted. So again, what you're seeing me do here is I'm deleting these setups after I break the link. Again, let's go ahead and delete this second setup. Now I'm going to move my part after the fact, but the idea would still be the same, as you have what would be considered first side of the part. And then over here, I'm now working on second side of the part, right? So again, kind of a neat thing as you're seeing with the differences in tool paths being linked in and set up. Micron, we are surveying construction layout for a huge microchip manufacturing facility. Awesome. Great to hear it, Jeff. Again, as you guys are seeing, this is where I really need to get some content out there for you. We've had this problem in the past when you start to run parts on a tombstone. I know Autodesk is looking into it, but as you can see, when I try to bring in 2 of the same part on a tombstone, right? Maybe I want to run 2 of the same parts in setup 1, setup 2, and then different parts, is we keep having the problem because of the model. When you go into the fixtures as well as the model for manufacturing, it keeps trying to tie itself back to the same thing. So, as you guys can see, again, a couple of different ways, and as all of you saw me do already, that it collapse all children, very easy way to fix that dilemma. So if all of a sudden your tool paths are all exploded out, you can simply right-click, go to collapse all children. Now keep in mind, this is going to collapse the entire setup, but again, very easy for me to expand that one out and get a list of things here. All right, Deep Thinker in chat, here we go. I have a challenge for you. Can Fusion do a mill and mill a cam profile, center offset from center of spindle? I can't read. Give me a sec. I gotta grasp this in here. All right, you want to do a cam profile, center offset from spindle center in a 3-axis lathe with live tooling. So presumably what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to mill a cam profile with no y-axis. Correct, Deep Thinker? I'll give you a second here to respond back, but in the meantime, let's go ahead and draw up that cam profile. So again, let's go ahead and get our cam shaft. We're going to go ahead and create a lobe, which is going to take a couple of circles. And let's go ahead and create that actual profile, tangent to tangent, line again, here to here. Once again, we'll go ahead and bring that around. As you can see, I've now created what I would consider a lobe. And for the sake of this, let's give this some type of reasonable dimension. Now, for some of you that just watched me do that, you've ever taken my classes, this is probably a good time for me to put this out there, is we have a ton of Fusion boot camps lined up. However, right now, all I can tell you about is these two that are officially locked in. If you guys are wanting to meet Fusion Phil, come out, get some training to see why what I'm going to show you here in my default settings is so important. We actually are set up to do in August here on the 3rd through the 5th in Minneapolis. And then we turn around the second week after that, the 12th to the 14th. We're going to be out in the Bay Area. And again, thanks to Productivity in Minneapolis and Selway out in the Bay Area. So again, as you guys saw me do here, I created that first dimension, right? And my entire sketch scaled down. I'm a big believer in proving that I can sketch what I want before I go in and add a million dimensions, right? And how you can actually get that set up in your software is under your preferences. And if I remember where it's at, I got to remember because I teach this in my class. But if we go to design, again, right here under scale entire sketch at first dimension, this is extremely handy. Again, as you guys saw me do, is I kind of eyeballed everything. And then I went ahead and added that very first dimension. And upon adding that first dimension, it scaled everything down for me. So now we could say this is a 1/2 inch here. Maybe we have, you know, a 660 here. Lastly, we're going to go with like a 330 here. And then, of course, because we like to fully constrain our sketch, let's go ahead and get a little horizontal vertical. And as you can see, I'm going to have to fix my constraints here. So as you're seeing, they are clicking into place. But with that, I'm still not fully constrained. So this is why it's important to double check things like blue lines. It's also very important if you go to your sketch that you've created, you're going to notice I don't have that little red padlock. So again, tangent, 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 and tangent. And now we got the little red padlock, which means we are fully constrained. So let's go ahead and get this profile strung out a little bit. And then let's go ahead and do a second extrude on that sketch. Now, for some of you, there is another setting in there called auto hide sketch upon first extrude or first model. You could turn that off as well if you get a little frustrated with having to turn your sketches back on. But I do see some more questions. So Deep Thinker, of course, tells me no. So we're going to go ahead and revisit that, Deep Thinker. My guy emailed over a sample that he was hoping you might be able to take a look at if it fits with today's show. Tim, I didn't want to pull up that part, but now it makes sense with your email handle. I didn't quite remember that that is you guys, but I will gladly pull that part up here shortly. Drawing it correctly, but with the y-axis, I'm looking to use an end mill to follow the profile almost as if it was a turning toolpath with a 0.5 step over. I think I know. Okay, so Deep Thinker, presumably I initially thought you wanted to use a ball end mill to go around the outside, right? Coming in on the X. But what you're saying is you actually want an end mill to come in on Z, right? And machine with the shoulder of the end mill around the cam lobe, right? I'll go ahead and give you a sec here again. But Tim, in the meantime, yes, Tim, let's go ahead and get Tim's part now downloaded that he's confirmed that we can go ahead and put it up here. So give me a sec here. Go ahead and get this file downloaded. A little chunky, but we'll get it pulled in here. And let's go ahead and get back to my lovely folder here. Nope. And we're going to give that a minute to upload. I got to get back to my YouTube chat so I can see what you're saying. Homer in the chat. Homer, great to see you, buddy. All right. Well, you know what, Deep Thinker? We're going to go for this a couple of different ways, and we'll figure out which way is going to work, right? As you guys are going to see, we're going to switch to manufacturing. This is going on a lathe, so we're going to go ahead and say turning. As you guys can see, we now have that lovely turning profile set up, our XYZ direction. And from that, we're going to go ahead and start to add some toolpaths. Use X to control end mill height and Z to walk using base of end mill. I'm going to program it both ways, and we're going to see what we got going on. So as you guys are going to see, first and foremost, let's go ahead and get a couple of tool paths on here. Of course, we need to face this part off. Any of you guys know me, again, taking my classes. Key element, if you ever go to your Fusion library and it's turned off because you're on a new install, like yours truly, we're going to go ahead and turn on all of our libraries. And now we can simply grab some of the generic tooling. So again, we're going to go ahead and face off our stock. Let's go ahead and turn around and do some profile roughing here real quick. And then lastly, let's hit it with the finished profile. So as you guys can see, we've gone in, we've set that all up. Let's get our stock turned on. As you can see now, we've gotten to the point where we can either look at roughing out from the face in Z or going around our part utilizing our X axis. Use X to control end mill height. I got that. And then Z to walk using face of end mill. I'm going to have to think on that here, but let's start with the basics, right? So again, we're going to go into milling. In this case, this is a relatively simple part. So what I like to do is if I look at something, one, we know we've turned everything in this direction, so I just need to work around the outside, right? So in this case, I might go 2D adaptive clearing. And for those of you out there, we always hit the OK button. That way, if the toolpath needs anything, it will go ahead and tell us. So we're going to go in, we're going to go with a 1/2 inch flat end mill. And as you guys are seeing, we don't have our pocket selected, and I hit yes versus no, so let's go back and change that out. As you can see now, we're going around our part, and we're roughing that in. I'm assuming Deep Thinker, you want the spindle to point to center. Okay, cool. So as you guys can see, we went in, we went ahead and roughed this all out, and now from that, utilizing an end mill to go around the outside of this profile. So this is where, in my opinion, something like your rotary axis is going to be the best kind of suit for this. So we're going to do rotary parallel. And now we could change our tool out, but let's just leave it to start with. And we're going to go ahead and hit OK, and we're going to see what we get for a toolpath. So as you guys can see, as of right now, we do have a toolpath here. It's not the best of toolpaths, but it is going in and it is wrapping around, as you guys can see. So again, you can rotate the stock instead. And as you're seeing, we're now pointed at the center, as I assume Deep Thinker was looking for. We're just probably machining a little bit more than we need to, right, Deep Thinker? So again, how I've done that is I've just used rotary parallel, and that's it. And you can see how we're just working our way around. Now, in a use case here, absolutely not the tool to do the job, right? This is why I was kind of pointing out maybe this is something we might want to take a look at using something like a ball end mill instead. So again, we'll go ahead and check our library. Here's a lovely 1/2 inch ball end mill. Now, it's always important to get the blue lines on your part. I teach this, I practice this, right? So as you guys can see now, if I go back one more time, I can actually change things like my geometry. For example, I want to start from a selected location, and I only want to machine so far back to another selected location. Now, for those of you that may or may not know, when we ran into trouble a couple weeks ago working on one of Tim's parts, is sometimes we have to offset and start in front of, things of that nature to get our toolpath correctly. But as you can see now, I've narrowed down where that ball end mill is going to go around the part. So again, Deep Thinker, it looks like that's what you were looking for. And the good news is, as you guys can all see, now that we've got it contained where we want our blue lines, we of course can make it much nicer. We could add additional passes, change our step over, whatever your end goal was with that toolpath. And now, because it is a ball end mill, so this is very important to remember, the ball end mill is always pointing at the center of rotation. And when we look at that, as you're going to start to climb up and down that part here, you're going to notice that tool is always pointed at the center line of rotation, right? So we're not actually perpendicular to the surface here. We are climbing up and over, and now we are up milling and down milling. Might be a little brutal on your tool. Deep Thinker, glad to see that we got you taken care of there. We could always come back to this part. Let's go ahead and swap gears here real quick and see what we have going on. We got a lot of stuff coming in here. So on this part, let me take a look here. So you got dovetail stock. You have your fixture. We're looking for the part, looking for the part. Which one is the part? That is always a good question, right? EM12. So let's see here. Jaw cam. Okay. So, yep. Easy enough. Thank you, Tim, for that. So from my understanding, you guys got a while on Windows 10 before it actually is done and over with. Now, keep in mind, in my opinion, this is one of those things that I have upgraded to Windows 11 almost, a year plus ago. Actually, man, probably on year 3 of being on Windows 11. Personally, there's no difference between it, guys. I'm being honest with you. Your toolbar settings down here at the bottom, as you guys can see, you can make it look back like Windows 10. It's not a big deal. But as you're seeing here, so one of the questions Tim had, to get my email pulled back up here, we're wondering if there's a better way roughing strategy in our 4+1 mill setup. More or less that we've been using 2D strategies, but we're looking for something that'd be faster to program, reach and expose faces of our part, setup op 1. Sure. So as you're going to see, okay, setup 1 is just for stock machining. Okay, cool. We got our jig and fixture. So what they've done so far, if we go ahead and activate this, again, super neat trick out there, pro tip. Down here at the bottom, you have this little yin-yang right circle. Go ahead and synchronize all your views, because as you guys will see me do here today, anytime I activate a setup, I can quickly jump between things and it turns on and turns everything off. As you guys are seeing here, great system they're using. Dovetail setup. They're cutting everything out, and then they are using a dovetail system with a pin alignment. So you guys want to know who has the big dollars, talk to Tim over there. He's got the shop that's got the money, right? So as we could go into setup 2, the question is how can I rough out something like this faster and more efficient? Now, Tim, I'm going to assume you all are going to put this on a tab or something, right? You're going to snap this off at some point. See, a lot of you guys worried about Windows 11 because you've got a lot of Windows 10 machines. One of these days I should show you, actually, I could probably show it to you guys today. So, Tim, are you going to put this on a tab and want to snap it off? Because it's going to be a little difficult to obviously machine all of this, but it will help a lot with how I'm going to show you to go about it. Just give Tim a few more minutes there. Now, for those of you with multiple computers, my question is always the same to them. No tab, another op. Okay. Sounds good. So I am actually, so when it comes to machining something like this, there's a lot of different ways to set up your boundaries to make life easy. The reason why I'm saying that is because if I came in with 3D adaptive clearing, now which direction you use for 3D adaptive clearing is up to you. Now what I'm looking for is a big old end mill that's going to do quite a bit of damage, right? As you guys can see, based on my Z direction, if I just let this thing do what it naturally does, I can always go back and change it. But as we've talked about, getting things orientated in the right direction is very important. Now, Tim, I would have to ask, hopefully this end mill, is it a high feed end mill or is it a traditional end mill? Because that would determine adaptive clearing or pocket clearing, right? So again, if I go back now and I think, you know what, I might actually do tool orientation instead, and I'm going to base it off something at 90. Now, when that email came in, it did say it was a 4+1 machine. That means they do have 4 axes, and then they do have the ability to use 4 out of 5 live. It's not a fully live 5-axis machine. That is what they're saying. So it's 4 live axes and 1 positional axis. But as you can see, working back the other way now, coming in from the side, I could do, once again, quite a bit of damage on this part where I might now duplicate my tool path and go right back the opposite direction. So let's get our Z flipped the other way. And then because of the rest machining and everything as well, you're going to notice we're going to go in and we're going to machine. But now, depending on how this setup looks, we're going to have to take a look at this, because in our setup with our fixture, and I know our fixture is defined there because it synchronizes, but as you're seeing is very quickly, Tim, how is this looking for you? Because with just nothing more than 3D adaptive clearing, we've done quite a bit already to this part. This is where I might now rinse and repeat the system. And by doing so, what I would mean is let's go again, adaptive clearing. Actually, let's swap it out. Let's get fancy with it, right? Pocket clearing, smaller tool. Again, tool orientation back that way. Go ahead and hit OK. And then we're going to find more and more areas where those tools can get in there and machine, right? So a few things we will start to run into, and this is why I wanted to point out some of that information about, hey, are you going to snap this off? What is the end goal of this part? Because as you guys are starting to see, if I start to add in more and more tool paths to this, now for some of you out there, Control D, duplicate, is all I did there and flipped my X. Again, proof of concept, guys. You don't have to make this CAM program perfect right off the rip, right? Like, let's prove that we can do it. Let's see how the stock is going to look at the end of the day. Is it realistic for that piece of material to hold on like that? Probably not. But this is where we can change things up, of course, right? So if I go ahead and jump back to design, we're going to go ahead and get that dovetail fixture turned on. Let's go ahead and just do a show all components. There we go. And then we're going to get the stock turned off so that we can see what's going on. So as you guys can see, this is where I could choose how to make boundaries or utilize a tab system, right? So the easiest thing for me to do is to create a sketch, and I'm going to pick a plane and then use nothing more than a rectangle. Now I'm going to over exaggerate this, as you guys will see. Let's say we want to go to about here. And then with that, that is now going to be my machining boundary based on the view, right? So again, we go back to manufacture, and we're going to go into that 1/4 inch end mill toolpath. I'm going to now go to my geometry area. And what we're going to do is we're going to swap out for a selected boundary. And I'm now going to define that sketch as the boundary. So what we're going to tell the software is to stay inside the boundary, right? Stay inside that green box. However, because the software is so smart, I'm going to turn this on real quick so you guys can see it. That yellow box is my material, right? So it knows stay inside the green, but only machine between the yellow and where the model is. So as you guys are going to see, we're going to go ahead and turn off stock contours anyways, because rest machining comes earlier in the list, and rest machining is going to do a lot of that work for us. So as you'll now see, I am completely avoiding going down underneath the bottom of my part. So again, nothing more than starting to utilize something like a sketched boundary can do a lot for you. Now, I don't know why you guys always ask me this question, but I get this question a lot, is what about if we wanted to do tabs, right? I'm a big fan of tabs. They work out quite well. Now, what I'm going to do for the tab system is, let's get our sketch back off and out of the way, is I'm going to go in and I'm actually going to draw my tab possibly from my stock. Maybe I'm going to create a new component. Again, completely doable here. We're going to say new component, going to be our tab itself. And then from that tab, let's go ahead and start to create our sketch. I'm going to go simply off the bottom of my part, and we're going to get that jig and fixture out of the way. As you can see, we're now drawing on this surface. Same concept. We're just going to draw up nothing more than maybe a little bit of a rectangle. I'm going to then extrude said rectangle. Now, the key element here is I can over exaggerate this actual tab, but as you're seeing, is the idea is at the end of the day is I'm going to give that model of the tab to my tool path, and then it will respect that as well, right? So again, even though it's down in my jig and fixture, it's just, again, it's there for a placeholder. That's all it is. So again, we go back to the manufacturer side of things, and instead of using that boundary, let's go ahead and actually, you know what? I'm going to, oh man, we're not going to be able to. We're going to show this a little different way. So I'm going to go to my adaptive clearing now, and it doesn't look like we actually touch it there. So I won't be able to actually, I will be able to duplicate this for you guys. We're going to go ahead and do another little trick that we have. Let me get this other one set up with a selected boundary, utilizing that sketch that we had. And then we're going to protect these so they're locked in, so we can't change them. So again, as you guys can see, we're avoiding going where that rectangle was, right? So if I take these two tool paths and we protect them, now we're going to go in and we're going to recreate what we had going on. So again, This time, little tool orientation this way. I am going to add an additional model into place, and that model is going to be our actual model from our setup, right? So, or not from our setup, but the model that we created for tab. Now, this is something to be very wary of, because notice how it now says model surfaces, right? It doesn't say model anymore. So let's go ahead and go over to where we drew our tab, and let's grab the entire tab component. And now I will have to reorder this guy up. The reason why I'm reordering that is because if you remember, we have these two protected tool paths for demonstration purposes versus, as you're seeing now with our roughing strategy, that tab coming into place. So again, we duplicate. I flip back the other way in Z. Again, we're using model right now, and we're adding our tab into the mix. So as you guys can see, my tab is now there in my manufacturing process. No matter what I do in those tool paths, it respects that it's there. Now, if you needed, and this is a good example, is Tim is planning to do this on a second setup. The idea would be is maybe just include the tab in your setup, right? Later, you're going to take the tab off when you take the part out. Now, for a lot of you out there that are planning to do something like this because you just want to later cut the tab off the part, as you can see, adding the tab at the model level makes it very easy. So that if I came back with 2D contour at some point, again, we're going to go ahead and set up our tool orientation. As you can see, our Z is the right way. And then, of course, we give this, some edges to work off of for that profile. Now, I'm going to cheat the system here. We're going to go ahead and just grab that edge at the top of our tab. Maybe we extend it out a little bit. Maybe you're going to leave it where it is. Every person is different. Every programmer is different. We could even flip what side we're on. So again, get those blue lines on there, realize they're wrong, flip them around, and then back the other way. We're also going to need to take this down to a certain height. But as you're seeing, I'm just using a process of elimination and working through the steps to get to where I want to go, right? There's my cutting of the tab off. And once again, if I hit activate on my setup, my tab is now gone. But if we look at our tool paths, you're noticing that my stock is still there. And then we get to that point of cutting off the tab. And then there's cutting off the tab, right? So Tim, I know that was a little long-winded, and I know there was a lot on there, but this is the luxury of why we post these. Now, I did screw up recording good audio quality on this to repost it later with our hits and tricks, but you guys will have access to this recording at any time. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and scroll back here a little bit. Make sure there's no other questions out there. I see a lot of people coming and going. Guys, if you have questions at any time inside the software, feel free to go ahead and throw them in chat. Let me know what you're thinking and how you're doing, or how anything that you guys are having problems with. Now, we are getting a little ways into this. I am going to tell you guys, as always, currently we do have a promo. So, in the event of our promo, not only is Autodesk Fusion 30% off for new seats, but we're also backing that with 30% off not only our support package, but any online training as well. If you're nice and you tell people what's going on and don't hassle my sales reps too hard, it might give you 30% off some of the other things that we have to offer. Matt, nice to see Matt out there. Great to have you. Again, guys, if you have any questions, we're here for you. We're here to help you any way possible. I do have to say, Tim, this is a very good setup that you guys have going here. And if I had to guess, not to put somebody on the spot, let's go ahead and look at his dovetail stock, because this is where I love to see the different ways you guys do stuff, the different thought processes that have happened, the setting up, the tearing down, anything and everything. So, as we can see here, we have his actual clamp down here for the dovetail. We have his riser. We also have his stock here. And if I had to guess, Tim, in your parameters area, it doesn't look like you guys went as far as you could have, but I am seeing the fact that you are utilizing a sketch and some dimensions, but you are using a configuration, it looks like, as well. So something kind of neat to see is they are basing some things on configurations. Now let's go ahead and look at our configurations. Like a clamp, Homer, a dovetail works really, really good to clamp onto your material and hold it, especially in a 5-axis environment due to its low profile and low working area. As you guys can see, we have a configuration here set up for different stock sizes, as Tim has shown us. And if you didn't know, you can go through and by double clicking the different configured sizes, automatically he can hot swap his material sizes and all of the different settings that he may have for his customers. Now, again, keep in mind, this is actually a simple process because his dovetail size doesn't change. All he really has is height, width, and depth. That's it to his material. However, let's go a little deeper because I always like to see what's going on. All right, so you guys drew that all from the bottom. Beautiful. And then it looks like you created a sketch on the side. All right, so this is what I was looking for. Now, some people get in trouble with their dovetails here. I'm not ragging on Tim's guys at all, but I would have drawn this from one side and one side only, and then possibly have done the notch on the bottom. So we could eliminate a few sketches here, but a problem that I see a lot of people do on something like this is when they create that first stock shape, and I'll do this on my drawing, they forget that the dimension from this line to this line up here, that isn't the actual stock height, right? You have that stock height plus your dovetail. I've seen a couple people get in trouble. They go to run their part and then they realize everything's a 1/4 inch too deep type of scenario. So again, nothing wrong with the way he did this. It's a great way to look at side of Fusion. As you guys are seeing here is I'm creating a sketch. I'm dropping a rectangle. Now, in my case, and this just might be me, I prefer to do a half profile. And you guys will see why here. So again, is if I do a second rectangle inside there and a nice little line for my dovetail, as you can see, this total height is what controls our stock height. And then we would have something like our dovetail width. Now this number, again, I don't know what it is off the top of my head. Let's just say it's 0.625 divided by 2. And then lastly, we can give this, again, let's say it's going to be 1 inch total width divided by 5. No, that's not what we wanted. 1 divided by 2. As you all are seeing here is I'm able to configure and set this up based on those dimensions, right? So the biggest difference between a normal sketch parameter and a configuration is the configuration allows you to hot swap dimension, right? So again, if I go ahead and extrude this out now, as you're seeing, I'm forgetting a line here. I drew my rectangle. Let's fix that. Great world of Fusion. We could always go back and undo stuff, right? So what I actually wanted was something like this. And then again, we want to go like this. Let's get that in there. 45 degrees. Again, we're going to need distance to the tip of that. What do we have? 625 divided by 2. And then I think we went with 100 thou depth. There we go. So what I'm looking for is when I extrude, I need that profile to give us our length, right? So now I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm actually going to go 3 inches positive. Just makes it a little easier. And then as you would notice is I would mirror these across. Again, nothing wrong with the way his guys did this. I'm just showing you guys a little different technique to get to where I'm going. And to make sure you guys are thinking in the world of when you create that total height of your stock, right? That you're utilizing it from the correct location. Not what would be here is if I would have dimensioned from here up. As you can see, that's a different dimension. Another way I've seen that, of course, is if I start a whole nother sketch is same technique, right? We're going to just use a rectangle up and then you do a rectangle down to create that profile. And then you realize when you dimension this rectangle, you're now forgetting about that extra 100 thou, right? So let's get back to that part. Again, the neat thing about this is now that we have our dimensions all in place, right? If I was to go into parameters, simply enough, just like he had there, I have my height, I have a width, right? And then maybe I need my extrude for my length. Now I'm hitting the little star to the left here so that I can actually favorite these up at the top to make it easier for somebody to change. 100% Homer, the more that part sticks up, as you can see here, is if I back this out here real quick, let's say we're working with a 6-inch tall piece of stock, we would definitely have problems with deflection way out here. So again, as you guys are seeing me do this in real time, I just updated that to 6. Now, again, I don't want to get way crazy on this, giving you guys all my secrets right now. This is what we charge money for over here. But if you noticed, I did the 1 divided by 2, right? Because I wanted 1 inch width to get the 1/2 inch, which is the half width before the mirror. I could also set up parameters for stuff. Again, super neat thing is we could actually say this is total W. And as what you'll notice, if I plug that in as 2 now, I need to modify where that goes. So again, is I'm going to unfavorite and then favorite my user parameter. And then down where we set that dimension up, if I go ahead and now take the 1 out and I say total W, what's going to happen is you're going to get a expression failure. Now, you will get expression failures because things like increment are already accounted for, right? Because it's 2 inches wide, divided by 2 would end up with an inch. You wouldn't have 2 inches divided by 2 makes 1 inch divided by 1 inch, right? You can't really combine increment of measure with units. But when I created that actual parameter there, I could have also done, instead of using unit inch, I could have said no unit. So again, you need one or the other to give it a increment along the way. But once it's applied, you don't have to keep reusing. So again, just a little different way to think about it here, as you guys can see, is we now have our total width. If you've ever watched any of my videos, guys, I do length, width, height all the time as user parameters, and then plug it in down below just so nobody has to go down here and mess with it. But we've now achieved what I would say is a parameter controlled dovetail, right? So to take this one step further the way Tim's team is doing it, again, fancy pants over there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to set up a configuration. Now, the cool thing is once we hit configure, we're now able to give this what actual aspects and parameters do we want, right? So again, as if I hit FX, I can simply go in and check those couple of things that I have favorited. As you can see, I just checked all of those. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And now configuration 1 is considered a 6x3x2. If I hit add configuration, we can now maybe make this 4x2x1. And what you're noticing the ability to do is to quickly go through, is to add any and every different type of setup that you'd want. Now, I don't recommend you go out and nominally set all of these up. Of course, that would be crazy to do at the end of the day, because you can very simply come in and have a couple of predetermined sizes. And instead of me popping open and close the parameter table, I could just use the configuration table to quickly swap these out. And that's basically how Tim's team has that set up. So again, going back here, the only thing I would recommend if you all are looking to attempt this is you really don't need that bottom sketch here. So again, his team just did a sketch of the bottom of the stock, and then they extruded it up to give it a second sketch from the side profile. And then I'm assuming his third sketch here, I'm pretty good at guessing, but his third profile is now incorporating that actual cutout in the bottom, where he could have combined sketch 1 and sketch 2 if he wanted all in one shot. Or he could have did, like I said, is maybe a side profile and then the bottom profile secondary. So again, guys, if you have any questions at any time, let me know. I'm here for you. A lovely Friday. I do have to say, Free Support Friday next week is going to be a wild one. We are going to be live on site with one of our customers that is doing some really cool things. Not only what he's machining and how he's machining, but the process is something like a ferro arm right inside of Fusion 360. So don't forget to subscribe, guys. Got to put that out there. Are we going topless? Topless? Let me go ahead and check my ticket system here real quick, guys. Make sure nobody's putting in any tickets while we talk here. All right, I don't see anybody putting in any tickets. That's good. Again, any other questions to anybody and everybody out there? This new thing with the chat is pretty wild. Homer, no offense, man. I have no idea what you're referring to as topless. So I'm going to go ahead and swap gears here real quick. So I've talked about this a little bit already. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go and recycle what we have here with this enclosure. Give me a sec here, guys. So I had a very interesting workflow come through from one of my customers. And what I'm doing here is just breaking these links in case you guys were wondering that we have all the tool paths here. Now, in the case of what they were doing in their machine, is if I can model this up, and this will actually tie everything together quite well as so far as what we've been talking about. But stock size, we can go a little smaller than that. You guys ever get stock that is just a crazy size, or you pull apart off of one of your racks just to fit it in for a job? Well, in the case of this customer, is they had a piece of material that presumably stood very, very tall at the end of the day. And the idea, which was not a crazy idea for this part, but what they wanted to do is what I would call a layer cake method, right? So as you guys can see here, is I am just going to simply eliminate a lot of what we have going on in this part just to make it very easy for you to understand. So again, let's go ahead and dump all of this stuff out. Now I have a roughing cycle inside. We don't need the deburr or the outside. Let's get rid of probe geometry. But their idea was, I'm going to go ahead and get, actually, of course, here I am again trying to make something work. Let's just go ahead and program this up a little bit more. All right, so now we're roughing inside, outside. But their idea is they wanted to run one, and then they're going to T-slot this off, and then they're going to run another one, right? So as you guys can see, is as of right now, I've completed the first one, but let's say I can get 4 out of this block of material. Now, some of you are going to be a little crazy on this. Oh, EJ showed up. We're good. We're good. But as you guys can see, is in the case of what he was doing, the problem is how do you get the machine to run longer unassisted type of thing, right? So how we did that is, in this case, is you have the ability to do loops. Now, if you've never done a loop in a machine, or you've never done a lathe with a bar puller or pusher, you can loop the same program over and over and over again a number of times, and then at some point stop, right? So what we did for him, and this just so happens to be a Haas machine, is by utilizing a manual NC pass-through, is we were able to put in something like an M, you guys are going to have to correct me on this, I think it's M97. And then what we want to do is we want to jump to a line number. So I'm going to go ahead and throw in 100. And then we're going to say something like L4. So what this is going to do is this is going to jump down to a certain line number 4 times. So what it's going to do is repeat, 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 repeat. And then after it does 4 loops, we're going to go ahead and throw in an M30. So as you can see, by creating this pass-through, I have now created the beginning of my loop cycle. Now, where this gets a little tricky, of course, is I've forgot one thing, and you'll see why. We're going to go back and add it, is at some point, we need to hit an M99, reset the loop. So again, I'm going to go ahead and say manual NC. We're going to come in and we're going to hit this with another pass-through. And now, in his case, you may want to bring the machine forward or something of that nature. So again, we could say G00, G53, and then we're just going to simply say Y0. That's going to bring our table forward. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to do an MOO, which is a hard stop. And then we're going to wrap that up with our M99, which means restart the loop, right? So at this point, we're creating a loop program. We're then running it, and then we're recycling back to the top. Now, what I forgot to do is to force where that N100 is. So here, I'm going to go ahead and plug in my N100 right after M30. So what's happening is with the loop, we're jumping the M30 to run, then we're resetting 4 times before we finally hit our M30 and stop. So again, with a couple of manual NCs, Now, there's another aspect we're going to throw in here, but we can actually create that loop to run that part. Now, the problem is dropping our Z value each time we run one of these, right? So this is a big thing for a lot of people is how do I get my Z to constantly go down each and every time? Well, again, we're lucking out here with a probe. So if I go in and I do a probe WCS, again, we need to go ahead and define our probe. And then what I need to do is define where we are going to probe. In this case, I'm going to probe the top of my stock, and we're going to do a Z-axis probe. Now, I do need to keep in mind that every time I go in and probe, once we run one, that variable has changed, right? So I am going to set my over travel a specific amount, right? So again, I don't know what this part depth is off the top of my head. Let's say it's 1 inch for convenience. And then we're going to run 4 of them. That's 4 inches. Maybe you have 50, 60 thou between them. You know, let's just chalk it up to giving this all the way down to 6 inches worth of over travel. Now, this is a very good point here because in the event you did all the extra work and created your jigs and fixtures, this could be a godsend for you when you do your actual probe WCS, right? So again, if I switch over to manufacture here, get into, actually that's our dovetail. Let's get into our first setup, probe WCS, right? I could have picked the top of my part, and it looks like we don't have the fixture in here right now, or I broke something along the way. Pretty good at that. Let's get that turned on. There we go. So again, you could now measure from your surface to the top of your jig and fixture. Again, you never want that probe to go down too far, right? So getting back to that actual part file, which one is it? There we go. So again, we now have our probing that I closed out. So we're going to go recreate that. Again, 6mm probe, nothing more than doing off the stock top in Z. And then I'm going to set my over travel to 6 inches. So every time this goes down, it's allowing it to go past the reference point up to 6 inches before it alarms out. Again, safety precaution mentally. You obviously don't want that number bigger than the distance from your stock to your fixture before you have some real problems here. So as you guys can see, I've now got that portion of this set up. But the issue is going to be what happens when we put a new piece of material in, right? When you get that new piece of material in to be machined, I would have to manually go in and probe the very first one again, right? Because my work offset right now is dropping each time. So that first time in to probe, if you guys haven't seen this or done this, don't do it, but you would wrap it down and break the stylus, right? This is where we can command a probe to be overrode. What I'm going to say is I'm going to override driving WCS. And how I could do this is I'm going to say 2. Now, what's going to happen is I'm now using 55 as my reference. So as long as when we run the first part, we set 54 and 55 to the same location, we are now utilizing 55 as a hard point in the process and allowing 54 to float downwards each cycle. And then finally, when we put the new bar in after we hit our reset, what's going to happen is that first one comes in at 55 and it hits that very top. It's going to pull 54 back up to the top, right? So again, it's not a very common workflow, but what we're doing is we are prepping everything here to be set up to be able to take one piece of material and run multiple parts out of it in a Z height fashion. Again, if I was to post this out real quick, give me a sec here. Go ahead and find us a Haas post. Should have one in here, of course, right? So there's my Haas post processor. Let's get this spit out, and then we can take a look at this code and see what it gives us. So again, right off the top, we should have, where is it? Here's our M97 loop. And again, P100 means go to line N100, right? And then start from here. The problem is going to be we're actually going to skip this N100, and we're going to come all the way down to this N100 and probably have a pretty bad time. So again, there's a little more work we got to do here because we need to do something like turning off our N numbers. So again, we're going to go ahead and post process. Now, me personally, again, this might just be me, but we can go in and we could say something like utilizing our N numbers only on tool changes, things like that. So again, only on tool change. And then again, this is where I like to start my sequence from possibly 200, right? So guaranteeing there's never a 100 before where I want it. So again, we post that out, we hit yes. And as you can see now, we don't have our end numbers until that manual one I typed in. So again, we're going to go ahead and jump down to N100, and then we are going to run the program 4 times. So if I was to Control F M99, we get all the way down here to the bottom and we hit M99, right? And then we jump back to the top. We jump back to the top and we jump back to the top. So again, simple way to create a loop to do something that may be completely untraditional in a workflow, or maybe you have a very long bar that you're feeding in from the side of your machine on a vertical mill. I know, sounds a little crazy, but I've seen some of your guys' shops and you guys don't have a saw and you're not paying $1 a cut. Why not run a little bigger piece of material if you can, right? Jeff out there with a question, when I'm coming to Vegas. Jeff, I will be in Vegas in January again. I guarantee you, because that is when SHOT Show is. EJ, pretty quiet in the chat, like always, until he sends me something crazy. Jacob here, great to see a lot of you new guys. Anybody out there has any questions at any time, go ahead and throw them in chat. I'm happy to help you guys any way I can. I'm going to go ahead and check my ticket system here real quick. Make sure nobody's throwing any tickets my way. And of course there is. Here's another question from somebody. Actually, nope, this is one that I've already answered. I converted that into a ticket. That's on me. False alarm. False alarm, guys. Any questions? That's right. EJ got roasted pretty hard last time, didn't he? No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. In the meantime, though, guys, if you do have a chance, feel free to hit us up. If you're anywhere in the Minneapolis area or if you're in the Bay Area, we are hosting 2 more Fusion boot camps right off the rip in August. And then on top of that, we also have a 30% off for the entire month of July. So again, getting you guys locked into support packages to help with these questions. All of these questions that I'm presenting are either sent in by some of our current support packages holders or additional customers that have reached out throughout the week. What do we got going on in chat here? Let's see here real quick. Machining a weldment. Yeah, that's a fun time. I'm going to open up the floor to you guys. You guys have any questions whatsoever, throw them in chat. We are here for you. I know we've been hammering at this for an entire hour already. It feels like half that. Yeah, weldments are fun, man. A little bit of heat warps a lot of stuff. Once again, open to you guys. The floor is open. Tim, I hope I got your guys' questions answered. I hope that puts a little more perspective on a few things. Love seeing you guys here. Again, don't forget to get signed up, hit like, subscribe, get those notifications so that next Friday, when I'm live on site dealing with porting and engine heads, as well as 3D scans and point plotting a bunch of stuff, it's going to be a good time. I have worked with a ton of smart machines, Joe, for sure. Actually, Joe, you came down to our training in Tulsa, didn't you, buddy? Yeah, so one of the guys there, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he has a smart machine. We spent about a day on that machine. Lots of fun stuff, to say the least. Did you guys end up buying a smart machine over there? I know you guys had a Haas prior to. You have the DS, right? Time to replace the DS30Y. I will say this, there is a handful of machines that you don't hear about, both for the good and for the bad, right? So smart machines tend to be one of those ones that everyone I see with one, they love them. They're great machines. They run great. Panic control, one of my favorite controls. So, it's a great machine altogether. 6-digit T callouts. I will tell you that 6-digit T callouts are not that bad. You should see some of the stuff that Mazak and Akuma does when we talk about B-axis heads. But I have dealt with a lot of different machines like that. How's scrap coming along? I was waiting for one of you guys to ask that question. I even pulled up the page already. So as you guys can see, I'm prepped for you guys this week. Let me get my chat pulled back up here. Oh, looks like I minimized that window. So, Jacob, as a whole, a couple of the big updates that we do have going on right now is our customer list is now synced to QuickBooks. We also have the ability to send and retrieve both our quotes and invoices inside of the software. Now, this week I thought to myself, I was going to change up gears for you guys because a lot of people that have been reaching out about this software, I know it seems a little over the top. And for some of you 1 and 2 man shops, I want you to know you do not have to route or create an operation for everything on a part. So Jacob, I'm going to kick this off at a low level and show you guys what some of our customers are doing in a single man shop, right? So what they've actually done is they've basically only created one work center, and it's the shop floor, right? And now you still want to give it a cost per hour. Let's say your shop is running $125 per hour. So everything is now just going to go to one work center, right? So again, it's just a pick list. It's not complex. It's got to go to the saw. It's got to go there. It's got to go here. But when you're quoting stuff now for your different customers, you guys are going to see me here. We're going to go ahead and pull up some of these fancy QuickBook generic names. But as always, let's go ahead and give this a part number of pieces. And again, what you're going to notice is the work center this is going to go to is nothing more than that one individual work center as a whole, right? So again, we're going to go ahead and say shop floor. I might have to refresh my page here real quick. Give me a second, guys. As you can see, let's double check to make sure I hit save. There we go. Now we can go back to estimates. Sometimes you got to lock it in, right? So again, back 10012. Let's say they want 100 parts. And now in shop floor, it looks like I'm going to be a liar. There it is. Hey, so as you can see, we could just throw everything right on the shop floor. This is where we could have some fun with it, of course, because at the end of the day, are you guys going to want a price per part? Do you care? Are you in the traditional mindset that it's going to cost $2,100? And what you're going to notice is I'm just going to throw that cost all into setup because it's not going to be cycle time times quantity. It's just going to be, you know, your shop rate minutes and then rolled across quantity, right? So if I hit the plus here, we go down, you're going to see that we have a price per part now. Again, I'm using this and scoping this at the lowest level possible, right? We could save that estimate. I forgot to put something else in there, which is on me. This is the fun of doing this stuff live. You guys get to see this in real time, is setting this up, getting everything plugged in, and putting our actual information where it needs to be. So again, as you're seeing, let's say it's actually going to be 1,500. And as you can see, we've got our pricing put in. So again, I think I'm missing, here we go. This is what happens when you don't have the stable build at your disposal. But I think you guys are seeing the idea, right? So again, you could do something at a very low level. We could then roll those onto the quotes with the traditional fashion. Sending those quotes off to QuickBooks is actually very easy to do. We have another button that is literally nothing more than send to QuickBooks, as well as we have some automations now built to auto send it from QuickBooks. You don't even have to open QuickBooks at the end of the day if that's something you're doing. But again, it's nothing more than that. We go back to our shop floor. Of course, we're not going to see anything on the actual schedule here because I failed to create the estimate and the quote. But again, you could just have a very low level, single row pick list, start from the top, work down the list, knock out each job as you have going on. So again, on the O-Scrap side of things, guys, it's designed to be scaled up or scaled down to as simple or as big as you want it. Of course, we still have the time clock function. We have our time cards. We're taking care of all of that here. But one big thing we don't want to do is we don't want to mess with the money side of the business. We want to make the money. So we're still sending it to some other software, some other accounting software for you guys to create your invoices, receive your payments, and everything like that. Jacob, I hope that's a little bit of an eye-opening update for you. We are running demos. So I do have, so you guys know, I'm not on the stable build on this computer yet. I have to get the stable build set up here so that I can show you what the demo is like. But if you want to know more about it, Jacob, go ahead and shoot us an email. I don't know, in this video description, is there the scrap email or is it just the info email? Go ahead and let me know. The other email address would just be oscrap@jitcadcam.com. I don't know. Can you put emails in chat or is it going to ban me? Yep. So it should just be the oscrap@jitcadcam.com. I don't think there's a space. Did it put a space in there? Cool, guys. Any other questions? Anything else for you guys? I mean, I've been telling you guys, I'm 2 days behind on everything, both mentally and physically at this point. I didn't get home till late Tuesday night. I'm now flying out tonight at 5 p.m. to go all the way to Indianapolis and drive to Toledo. Then back to Indianapolis, back here, then possibly to Texas, back out of Texas. I get to go to Minneapolis again, do a training for free. Again, free training, guys. Get signed up now. And then after that training, I get to go to California for some reason. Let's hope they get the wildfires put out, right? Cool. Well, I'm going to leave this open to you guys. I'm going to go ahead and hit you with the closing statements as always. If you guys have any questions while I continue on, I'm happy to stay here, hang out for the next hour and answer any and all problems. But great tips today. Awesome. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, thank you, thank you. When am I rolling down here to Southern California? I don't know yet. I really don't know. Eventually, I'll make my way down there, DJ, 100%. You'll be the first person to know. But as you guys know, as always, it's always been fun. jitcadcam here, Fusion Phil in the flesh, Fanic Phil, as it's been. You know, with that being said, if you guys like what you see, don't forget to subscribe. Get the notifications turned on, leave a comment, let me know what you want to see, things that you wish there was videos about. You guys can always buy me a beer, buy me a steak on the website as well. We can move any and all Autodesk software over to us directly. That's another way you guys can help to support and grow this channel. And always, we do have current promos again one last time, additional trainings in the pipeline. I'm not seeing any other questions, so I'm going to go ahead and cut you guys loose. We're going to pause here real quick. No questions. Going once, going twice. Nothing? All right, guys. Well, you know the plan. Have a great weekend. Get rested up. Get back to it Friday.